Pick one and kind of, bridge into the other.
Yeah, but also, like, does it help you to think, well, wait a second, if I had a 30-year career ahead of me, would I feel the same urgency to do both of them now?
I think my challenge is I'm making a career transition to this new field where my passion is, but I have a lot of practical experience in this other area, because that's what always draws me in.
Right, but you're still at the PhD level, or are you one of the people that's beyond that?
I'm waiting to hear on my PhD this week, so.
Oh, so you're done your PhD. And
no, I'm waiting to hear if I get in.
If you get in, right. Well, if you're at that stage, you're starting a PhD, then why not start on the thing that's your passion?
Right, that's what I'm doing. So
right? And then the fact is that you've now got your PhD to establish yourself in that field. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to go forward as somebody who has a PhD in that. You see?
Exactly.
And then it might be that actually the bringing the other stuff back in, if you do think it's related, is the post-PhD thing. Right? You've done this other. Yeah. Now you're going to focus on this, really establish yourself there, and then you're going to be able to do the other stuff if you're still interested in it, because, a lot can change while you're doing a PhD.
Yeah, I was never one to choose, so.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, but sometimes you just have to be a little bit more focused so you can get it finished.
You don't have to choose, but you need to focus.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes?
What do you think of the concept of centers of research excellence, where you bring together many academics who will be working together? You work in the UK. The European model is very much group-wise, so people are working in group, sharing their research, collaborating on papers, whereas the North American model is very much individualistic. So do you see a trend where people tend to work more and more together and collaborate on papers?
Yes, but it varies a lot by discipline. So in the humanities, there is a little bit of that coming, but the humanities tend to be much more still in that individual scholar mode. And I think in your early career, like at the PhD and just post-PhD, it's important to establish yourself as an individual, just get some publications out just to kind of establish who you are. But then I think there is that, and a lot of universities are setting up interdisciplinary centers of research and encouraging that kind of model. I know Carleton is doing that. And this is where some of those contradictions about interdisciplinarity can come in. So I think in terms of getting hired, being able to present yourself as a solid scholar in a particular discipline that would fit into a department, because hiring is still also quite dominated by, we need people to teach these classes, right? And the core courses in this discipline. And departments are still very discipline-based, right? But the fact that you have interest in collaborative and interdisciplinary work will often be an added bonus. You see what I mean? Okay, so there's that kind of sense, if you think about it as you've got a core in your discipline or your main area, and then you have around that, you have interest and contributions to cognate disciplines, interdisciplinarity, and that kind of thing, which may be done on your own or in collaboration with other people, and I think collaboration is a really good way to do that. And then around that, you might also on that outer side, and that might be a thick shell. It isn't necessarily a periphery. It might be a thick shell, but you need to have the nucleus that's, I'm a solid scholar in this field, right? But around the nucleus, you could have a pretty thick shell of collaborative interdisciplinary work, or collaborative, other kinds of collaborative work, and even work where you're working with community partners or with decision makers or with policy makers and doing that kind of thing, depending on what your interests are. I think there is definitely a move towards that. But you need to keep that strong core in the middle, partly so that, because it's still so important to both people's understanding of good scholarship and knowing who your peers are to judge your scholarship, and also just to being able to hold an academic position, because departments are organized that way and departments do the hiring. Right? Centers for Research Excellence. See, that's where it's different in Europe, is that often the hiring is done, like people are hired to do research and they do the teaching separately. I have a Swedish friend, and the hiring structure is really different. So in North America, the hiring structure is still predominantly around teaching and departments. And so you need that strong disciplinary core. But there is a lot of, not just pressure, but also funding support going into that other collaborative model. So I think if you're interested in that, then it's worthwhile doing that as long as you kind of maintain some sort of a core. And if you're in a discipline where you publish with other people regularly, it's a good idea not to always publish with the same people. Because when you're being judged, right, if you're always in joint authored publications, if the other authors are different, then it's pretty clear, if they're all good, that you are making a strong contribution. Whereas if you're always publishing with the same person, it's kind of hard to tell whether it's you or whether you're riding on their coattails. And although I hate to say it, and nobody will probably say it to your face, if you're a woman, that is even more important if you are publishing with a man. And heaven forbid that you write with your husband. I have heard some incredibly sexist things said out loud about women who publish with their husbands, you know, on the assumption that she's obviously the weaker academic partner, which have made me livid, as you can imagine. But it does happen. I have heard of it. And so it's just important that, that you have other evidence in your CV that you are strong, you know, that you publish with other people is usually good.